कुरु धन जन यौवन गर्वं हरति निमेषात् काल सर्वं मायामयमिदम् अखिलं बुद्ध्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा मा कुरु धन जन यौवन गर्वं हरति निमेषात् काल सर्वं मायामयमिदम् अखिलं बुद्ध्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा. So the title for the verse is Props of Ego. Ma kuru dhana jana yavana garvam. Garvam is pride. The verse says, take no pride over dhana, wealth, jana, retinue, yavanam, youth. Now he's just mentioning three avenues with which perhaps you create ego, where ego arises. Harati nimeshat kalah sarvam. Time loots all away. Nimeshat. In a moment. It doesn't take long for you to lose your wealth, retinue, or youth. Don't we all say, oh, time flies. I have not realized I've got old. You become old very soon. Maya mayamidam akhilam buddhva. Having understood all this as totally illusory, you enter the state of Brahman. Brahma padam tvam pravisha viditva. Pravisha is you enter. Pravesha. You enter what? Brahma padam, the state of reality. When does one enter the realm or that state or the zone of wisdom? When you understand all this as Maya Mayamidam. It's not easy to accommodate the thought that everything is illusory. Now, how many of you are convinced that whatever you are doing is illusion? Oh, Maya. Pa. Everything is Maya. Anant, would you agree that everything is Maya? You agree, huh? I didn't realize that you understand that. Huh? You think everything is Maya? I hope your computer behaves. Something is not right. Yeah, please. Yes, Ramji. You were talking of a beautiful poem in Telugu. Cheppan, sir.
You know, in Telugu, there are two, what we call shatakams. Shatakams are told to us right in the early stages of life. There is a shatakam called Sumati Shatakam.
Okay.
So in that, there is a very beautiful poem, which I remember almost every day.
Nice.
It says that Sirida Vachana Vachunu, Salalitamuka Narikela Salilamu Bhangin. Sirida Poina Povunu, Karimingina Velagapandu Gadara Sumati. Means Siri means wealth or money. Siri comes. Sirida Vachana Vachanu. That means it comes. Salalitamaka Narikela Salilamahangin. How water, such tasty water enters a coconut, nobody knows. Right? So like that, wealth will come. It will come like water enters the coconut. Sirida Poena Povan. It can go. Like curry means elephant. Elephant swallows this fruit. We call it velagapandu in Telugu. I don't know the English word for that. So it is a fruit which has a hard exterior and inside the very nice thing is there which we use to make chutneys actually. So that when it swallows, it will come out as it is from the backside. Okay, and you break it and open, there will be nothing inside.
Oh.
Yeah, it eats it, but without disturbing the external hard cover.
Oh my God, that's something extraordinary.
Yeah, so it says that money will come like water in the coconut, but money will go like the wood apple. I don't know, maybe it is called wood apple, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good.
When it swallows and when it comes out, the thing inside is gone, but you won't know it. So that's how it is. So I remember it every day just to make sure that I am rooted, I am grounded to the reality of wealth being temporary.
So beautifully said. Oh my God. So profound, isn't it? So profound. So nice. So you said there are two Shatakams.
Yes, the second one is called Vemana Shatakam. So one is Sumati, another is Vemana. So these are imbibed in us from the age of 3 or 4. So by the time we are 7, 8, and they were all beautiful. In fact, this is what I was talking when we were talking of the development of mind, intellect, and conscience. All these things get into our mind, and then they shape your personality in a way, they shape your thoughts in a way over a period of time.
Right.
And some of them stay with you till the end.
Correct.
In the childhood, you are made to improve your handwriting. You are made to write. One line is given on the top, and then you write 10 times, 15 times to improve your handwriting. These are used for that purpose also, so that you write them 10, 15 times so that you remember them. So it's a very rigorous imbibement that goes through during our childhood. It went through. Nowadays, nobody does it, but we all went through that.
So nice. Absolutely. It's amazing how what is life molded by these values and what it isn't it? We see it. We see it. Very true. Very true. So yes, Anand, he says not everything is Maya. So you have selected a few things as Maya and few things as real. Huh? So is it a convenient choice or is it it just happens to be? It's a choice based on awareness. Yeah. So as one raises the level of awareness, and the whole attempt when we come to a scriptural study like this is to borrow the awareness or the perception of the great masters. That quality of trying to imbibe and raise one's level of wisdom is known as upasana. Upasana. You practice upasana. Upa is sitting, near, asana is sit. So upa means near, asana is sit. You try to sit near a teacher to gain the perception of the teacher, the guru. So we are trying to imbibe these scriptures so that we are able to look at life from their perception, from their wisdom. And the highest truths, what these masters are saying is, when you understand the entire world as illusory, you are not carried away by youth, by wealth, retinue. You give it, what is this? There's a beautiful concept. Now, Ravindraji, can we have that slide which conveys this principle, please? Okay, great. I hope you all can see this. Now, what the text is trying to talk is, the text is talking from an absolute standpoint, which the masters are calling the world as illusion. The Mahatmas say the world has no pith or substance. The world has no reality at all. The famous words of the Shastras, it says, Brahma, Satyam, Jagat Mithya. This is ultimate declaration of the Mahatmas or the truths or the scriptures. But now it is very difficult, as Anand rightly says, that it is very difficult for me to accept because certain aspects of it are illusory, certain are very real. It makes very much sense to me. I can't say my family is illusion, my work is illusion. I can't say the world I live in is illusion, is very much real to me. So one extremity or one standpoint is illusion. The other extremity is we have made the world very, very real to us. We have made it so real that the world haunts us, the world stings us, we are affected by all that the world goes through. So in between these two extremities, there is what we need to cultivate is known as a relative reality. Thank you, sir. So a relative reality is where you are playing by the rules of that state or realm or that experience, but you don't allow that state or experience to overwhelm or influence you. That is known as the relative reality. And slowly you move out of absolute reality to relative reality. And as you evolve at some stage of your spiritual journey, you will be able to appreciate this idea that the entire thing has no meaning or substance, man. What am I getting so carried away with? It is all my imagination. Are you all able to relate to this idea? Now, can anyone give examples of an absolute reality vis-a-vis appreciating, making it a relative reality? When something is absolute reality, you get completely overwhelmed, you get carried away with it. It means everything for you. It could be work, it could be business, it could be family, it could be your social life, it could be your health, it could be your lifestyle, it could be your possessions, it could be your sport. You could be so addicted to sport. Sport is everything for you. You don't want to miss that game of golf, or you don't want to miss that time with your friends or socializing, or it means everything. It's your life defines you. That's absolute reality. And your life breaks when you don't get that in your life. You're not given that opportunity to experience it. But then when you start looking at life with a little different perspective, you develop a relative reality. It's no harm, okay? It's good to socialize, but for some reason, if you don't, life doesn't come to an end, man. If you're not able to play a game of golf or just be with your sport, no, my life doesn't come to an end just because I haven't played sport for the past 6-8 months. Has life not gone without any much fuss? Are you able to look at it? So how you can change that perception of absolute reality, if you can inject that little bit of philosophical perception, you start toning down the much anxiety, excitement, the hype, and that which you are overwhelmed with. Bring it to a stage of relative reality. And all of us in life are at some stage where you're giving something an overwhelming attention more than it needs. Oh, my child's development is very important. You know, once in a year, we used to have retreats in Malaysia. Even here, we've started that retreat. And one of my visits, after coming back, I went back to Malaysia for my lecture tour and retreats. And one of the students who was very regular with the classes, he was very much wanting to be there. And he said, Guruji, I'm very sorry, I'm not able to attend that 3-day, 4-night that retreat, is because my child is sitting for exams. So I can't come. How old is your child? 5th standard. Child is 5th standard. And this is a once in a year experience where I was there, and he enjoys, he's been a part of it. And he says, sorry, I can't be available, I can't come because of My child is sitting for exams. He's not sitting for IIT, for God's sake. Your fifth standard, what pressure? You are so overwhelmed with him passing the exams and you are so carried away with it. Making it a mountain. Oh, my child has not got what job. So many of them are telling me, complaining that my child doesn't have a job. You're making it an absolute reality, as if your only son has got no job, your only daughter has no job. So many people are losing their jobs. So what's the big deal? One more fellow has no job in the whole pandemic. So big deal. Make it relative. No? Are you the only person suffering? Why you're the only child in the world? Why are you so attached? Why are you so carried away? Make it little realistic. I'm only trying to throw examples, ideas, so it sets you thinking. Absolute reality vis-a-vis making it a relative reality. Vijay ji.
Thanks, Guruji. In fact, I was thinking about the concept of absolute and relative reality is actually very revealing. Because I was wondering, because without any passion, there is no life. I mean, I may be a little controversial in making statements. If we don't have a lot of, put a heart into a lot of things which we do, there is no life. The question is that if we don't do it, are we going to be really, all completely at a loss? I think that's possibly makes a difference. And possibly, I mean, I'll give a silly example. I love collecting stamps. I love collecting coins. And when I do it, I feel a lot of happiness. I've always felt a lot of happiness. But the moment I can take it or leave it and forget about it for months and then take it back again, I suppose that's what you call a relative reality. I mean, in a sense, I find there is nothing wrong in enjoying it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's okay. It remains that it's the harmless pursuit. It doesn't harm anyone and not harms the enemy in me. But so long as I can take it or leave it, I suppose it's fine. Is that what exactly, do I understand it like that?
Yes, you can think that way. Absolutely right. Perhaps if you think of an example of a sportsman, he gives everything, a professional sportsman gives everything he has to excel in that sport, to win the tournament. But when he loses a tournament, he doesn't go and commit suicide.
Yeah.
Would he commit suicide, or he break up relationships, or he goes and breaks up his home, or at worst we have seen people get emotional, they've broken their tennis rackets or got into a heated argument. Yeah, there could be a few emotions that rise, but it's not that demanding that your life shrinks to that moment and you say, samaptam, the end. Now, this is what is happening thanks to the unmindful parents. The moment you find these exams, competitive exam results come, I've seen right through from a young age. I never understood why, but it all makes sense now. You find these kids at the age of 16, 17, when these competitive exam results come, the next few days, papers are stained with suicides all over the country. What could have gone wrong for a child to commit suicide at the age of 17 just because he or she has not scored the 90 recurring marks? A child has got 70% marks or 80% marks. Just because a child has not got 92%, 94%, the child commits suicide. Who is to be blamed there? The innocent child or the upbringing of the parents who have molded them to believe that their life pings and decides and defined by those results that come out of those competitive exams. Oh my God, and the amount of pressure that children, innocent kids are subjected through is so difficult for them to handle failure that life ends. Life shrinks to that moment. So those exam results are absolute reality for them. Now you ask me, how much did I get in my examinations? How well did I score? What does it any matter to me now? Does it matter to you now? So why do you think it should matter to them now? Don't make their journey of learning a hell. Is job all important to you now? No, I've seen life, I've experienced, I've made money, I've made success, I've been on boards, yes, but is that all what life is? So why do you create that? My God, it's such, it's not the right way to make too much fuss about everything. Is money everything in life? Yet you need resources to live, but it is not everything. You need money to live. You don't live just for the sake of money. You need food to live, but you don't live to eat. You need a family to carry on with life, but you don't live only for the sake of family. The moment you live only for the sake of family, you're constructed a China wall around your own family. You can't think around anything other than the family. And wherever that emotion is constricted, it becomes selfish. It starts smelling foul. That's attachment. It's nothing wrong to have pure love, but the moment you restrict that emotion to I and my, it becomes selfish. I will do a lot only to my family. That's a selfishness. It becomes unhealthy. If you have something, can you not share that privilege to others? I'm not saying to write off your properties to others, but just share your comforts and convenience to others. Can't you be interested in others' well-being as well? Why only think of I and my all the time? Absolute reality. So everything that you're doing, you're magnifying it to a point of fault. And then you pay the price. So it is very important to, unless until you inject this concept of relative reality, you will not march towards this ultimate idea, the entire world is illusory. So don't dismiss this idea. I'm only trying to bridge a gap between where we are to where we should be to where we ought to be, which is what the Shastras are saying. It's a gradual evolution, how you evolve to appreciate a thought of grander wisdom. So it helps so that you don't fall a prey to the ego, which comes through wealth, retinue, and youth. He's just giving a line of thought. It's not restricted to these three alone. So it is an antidote for the ego and all that comes out of ego. Sriniji, Srinivas Reddy Garu. Okay, Sriniji, you're fine. Reddy Garu, he wanted to say something.
Yeah, nothing. I think with your analogy, I got puzzled out whatever I thought of saying. Like the position of the car, like I can see that you like to maintain the car so much well and everything. A scratch come through, you feel that whole thing is really gone life. So much of regret, so much of crying on that. And a materialistic thing, of course, a scratch is scratch, but I could see the people really go by regret and calling the family, saying, pursuing the matter. I feel really, when you really put across the relative reality, I think that makes real sense. We need to tone down our expectations, tone down our illusionary thinking, tone down our so many things. I think we need to bring that perception to the realities, to not to get too carried away with the absolute reality imaginations.
Yeah. So if you same thing, if you were to say somebody flings a remark at you, it scars your image. Can your life and your day go on as if nothing has happened? Well, it is that man's opinion of what I am. But that scar becomes a dent, then it becomes an accident, then it becomes permanently in the garage, becomes incapacitated. How can you say that to me? You're so overwhelmed. It is just an opinion, man.
That's right.
Your life should not be driven on that. So you are able to understand life goes on with or without it. Perfectly. Just for a moment, look at life without it. And you'll understand how much of fuss you're making of too much about nothing. Too much fuss about nothing.
That's true.
We believe I'm all important. Life can go on without me. In fact, it's slightly better in my absence. It's slightly better. We don't realize we think we are all important. Slightly better. Everyone is more peaceful in my absence, actually. Try it out. Few days, don't go to the office and say how things go on. Everything is going on normally. Then you go back to the office. Okay, let me do my part in a most humble way. Not that I am the master. Things will happen, but just let me play my role well objectively. Isn't it, Ji?
That's right.
Right. Wonderful, Ji.
That's perfectly right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Harish Ji, yes, sir, please.
Hariyom Guruji, I just am reminded of some things which you said in other classes, which I thought was putting everything in perspective. I did type some of it down in the chat box,
Sorry.
but I wanted to say that I'm just repeating whatever I've learned from you, which you have said at various times. I think it will be relevant to everybody.
Please, sir.
The first thing is that we as humans, all humans, are most comfortable with a binary situation. You're comfortable with a 1 or a 0, not with the shades of gray in between. So we like finality. That's why we are very uncomfortable with reality, with relativeness, right? You're comfortable saying, I'm either rich or poor. You're not comfortable saying, I am richer than X or poorer than Y. You know, so that was one aspect which you were brought out repeatedly, and which you again referred to now as to what is relatively the situation.
Sir,
And finally, everything.
I have never set this example in my whole life, sir. And you are attributing something to me. I do not know. There's a lot to learn, Ji.
It's my little mind which only picks up some parts of sentences.
No.
Right. Then the very important thing which you've always said, that everything comes down to proportion.
Yeah.
Right? Give everything the right value. Everything has a right value. And do not give matters a black market value.
Correct.
And this is what I think is the determining factor in whatever what you said just now.
Correct.
That are you giving it, even in the example of the horoscope and this thing, if you were to look at it as just a statistical indicator, right, and give it the right perspective, and not say that everything is because of this, and not give it a causation and a finality, then you would be more comfortable living with the reality.
Correct.
So, but the most essential thing is that which you have always said, that with this realization that don't give something a black market value, give it the right value, comes only when you have humility. And when you realize that you are only a contributor, but not the sole cause or the sole effect of anything. So this is true for everything, for objects, environments, conditions, anything. That once you say that it's only relative to a relative situation, it is not absolute. Once you realize that it has a certain value and not more, not less, right? That only comes with humility and with surrendering to a higher cause.
Absolutely. Very well presented and very well captured the idea of the black market value, giving it more status than it deserves, you know. And when you give it the right value, it just humbles you down. Very well said, Ji. Very well said. And I think it's very, very important to inject this spirit into our lives so that we are able to handle wherever we are and whatever we're dealing with. So it doesn't overwhelm us. Yet you play by the rules, you abide by the laws, you play your roles, like you play the game, and yet you will go and congratulate having lost the game to a better player on that day. And you say, better luck, man. Go right till the end. You wish that person across the net or to opponent, but yet you have strived to excel and win. But that just because you have lost doesn't make you any less. The attitude to take to life is very, very, Beautiful. In fact, we must live life. The saying is, you must live life as a prince takes to sport. A prince is not interested in whether winning or losing the game, but he enjoys a sport. But a prince take to life as a prince takes to sport, not for the sake of losing or winning, but just to play that game so that you enjoy the beauty of it. So you're not overwhelmed by every role that you play. Be a father, be a son, be a manager, be a managing director, whatever role you play, just play a role and let it not overwhelm you. Get into the charm of life. All right. If required, we'll touch on this verse before we take it forward. Okay. Forgive me, we just overshot by a few minutes because I was really wanted to listen to the feedback or clarifications few had wanted to convey. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.